One of the major ways Amazon is reaching its customers today is through entertainment. Throughout the years, we've expanded to being a critical part of the Prime subscription offering, seeking to create great content in partnership with all communities. Our first panel today will speak about the future of entertainment and marketing. Please join me in welcoming to the main stage the head of Amazon Studios, Jennifer Salke, and the CMO of Prime Video, Ukonwa Ojo. Moderated by the Global Head of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for Amazon Studios is Latasha Gillespie, as they discuss what goes into their work creating content that amplifies voices and tells stories that reach consumers of all backgrounds.
Hello and welcome to the Represent the Future of Entertainment and Marketing panel. I am Latasha Gillespie. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm currently the head of Global Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for Amazon Studios. I will be your moderator for today's session, and I am thrilled to announce or introduce you to our two panelists who will be joining me today. These are two amazing, brilliant women that I get to work with on a daily basis, and I know you're going to get a lot out of this conversation as I do every day. First, please help me welcome to the panel, Ukonwa Ojo. Her pronouns are she and her. She is our Chief Marketing Officer for Prime Video and Amazon Studios, responsible for leading global brand and originals marketing. Prior to joining us, Ukonwa was the Chief Marketing Officer for MAC Cosmetics, where she oversaw brand positioning and increased their presence and appeal to a global consumer in growing markets around the world. Prior to that, she's also been Chief Marketing Officer for Coty, Senior Vice President at CoverGirl, also at General Mills and Midwest Vaco Corporation. Over the course of her career, she's been recognized with over 50 awards, including Business Insider's list of 25 most innovative CMOs and Ebony Magazine Power 100, just to name a few. She is a graduate of the Business School at University of North Carolina and also holds an MBA from the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University. Please help me welcome Ukonwa. Glad to have you.
Hi, super excited to be here. Thanks for the intro.
Fantastic. And joining us will be none other than our colleague and my boss, Jennifer Salke. Her pronouns are she and her. She is the head of Amazon Studios, overseeing all aspects of television and film development, as well as production for Amazon's global entertainment division. She has been a force in this industry over the past 2 decades. Prior to joining Amazon, she was president of NBC Entertainment, where she brought shows like This Is Us, Modern Family, The Blacklist, Superstore, and Dick Wolf's hugely successful Chicago franchise into our homes every week. She is a board member for the Los Angeles chapter of Big Brothers Big Sisters. She also acts as an ambassador for the nonprofit operation Smile. And under her leadership, Amazon has joined in partnership with both Reframe as well as Free the Work. We're super excited. Jen, welcome to the panel. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with both of you.
Awesome.
Wonderful audience.
Well, listen, I've already read your bios, so people know a little bit about you, but I thought it would be good for both of you to introduce yourself without repeating anything in the bio, just to give our audience a little bit more of a sense of who you are. Jen, let's start with you.
Sure. I grew up in Los Angeles, one of 4 girls, and native Californian, and then went off to New York University for college. And coming out of school, I really wanted to be in the entertainment industry, although I did not grow up in it and did not have familial connections to it in any way. I was always into creative writing, and I graduated with a business undergraduate degree and writing for film and television from NYU. So I had this kind of left brain, right brain thing going and always had. And so I was excited to join, and I came back to LA, and I came and started working as a assistant and moved up to become a executive at Aaron Spelling's company. For those of you who are too young on the phone, the old 90210 and Melrose Place, Heaven, you might be catching up with those shows on streaming now. And then I went on to work at 20th Century Fox Television for 10 years, which was a really incredible, the most sort of influential part of my career start. And I really moved forward from a mid-level creative executive to running the entire creative area there, including oversight of all scripted programming, which is what the studio provided. And that's where Glee and Modern Family and so many other great shows came out of that time. And as Latasha said, I was then at NBC Universal. I've always been a huge proponent of diverse teams, and I was so excited to have my team at NBC Universal and overseeing Universal Studio as well, television studio, be full of like women and people from all different backgrounds. And I've managed to get a few of them over to Amazon, which has been incredibly gratifying. I'm thrilled to be at Amazon. I arrived a little over 2.5 years ago. It's so exciting to be part of building, a global entertainment business, and to be able to continue my pathway, marrying creative with leadership and business. And so I'm really grateful to be here. Thanks.
Yeah. Now, Hebe is the head that wears the crown, and we know women in business often wear multiple crowns. So in addition to the crown you wear at work, you wear some other crowns.
Oh, sure. I should have mentioned that. I've raised 3 amazing kids. My son is a junior at University of Colorado Boulder, and I have twin girls who are sophomores at Brown University, identical twins. So I have all my kids out of the house, except now during COVID, I'm getting more glimpses of them than I anticipated, which I'm loving. And I have 3 dogs and a husband who also works in entertainment.
Fantastic. Ukonwa, tell our audience more about who you are.
Hi. Okay, so let's see. I'm a Nigerian American woman. I spent the first 15 years of my life in Nigeria, and then I moved over to America, and I have been here my entire late teens and adult life. So that's a little bit about me. In terms of all the commas in my life, I'm the wife to 1 man. I am the mother to 1 son. I am the daughter to an entrepreneurial father and fashion design mother. I am passionate about a lot of things, food, dance, especially Afrobeat. My faith is really important to me. Fashion, because, well, my mom was a fashion designer, so I either loved fashion or I had to leave the house. And travel, which of course was pre-COVID. So I have been really upset this year about our inability to move around and to travel, because it is one of my fundamental loves and passions. But so yeah, those are the things that I love. And then of course, entertainment, which I feel very fortunate to be working in. So it feels like I get to live out one of my passions at work, which is pretty awesome.
Don't worry about the lack of travel, because hopefully, God willing, soon enough, we'll be moving around the globe like we were the previous years.
That would be
on video in over 240 countries and territories. We have plenty of places for you to go.
Exactly. I'm like, let's do this.
Right? And so listen, we know that the audience that's participating today are people who are interested in, or considering or thinking about Amazon as a place to work and their own careers. And we just want to give them great insight and nuggets today. So we're just going to have a good conversation. We're going to have a girlfriend's conversation during today, but hopefully also share some great knowledge and tips. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Love it.
Fantastic. So I know everyone is looking at both of you and listening to your impressive backgrounds and resumes and bios and thinking, oh my God, these are 2 boss women. And you make it even look easy, right? Doing it all while raising a family and all that comes with that. But if you had to look back at your career, at some point there probably was a decision, probably one that terrified you, that was a real turning point for you. What was that decision, and how did you go through the process of deciding how to move forward?
I can take that to start. When I was at Fox, I worked for an executive named Dana Walden, who has since become a really very close friend of mine since that time. And as I said, that was a very, a big period of growth for me. And I loved the creative material. I loved working closely with the writers. I loved being the kind of creative partner for all the deals that we had there. And it was really awesome. And when I got asked to come over and be the president of NBC, that's moving over from a studio job where your job is to provide content to not only your, at the time, your sister company, but also to other networks and businesses and streamers, which didn't exist at the time. But they, you know, looking ahead and thinking about taking that NBC Universal job, all I could think about was, oh no, I'm gonna have to do this annual event that is in New York on Radio City Stage, where I would have to present for several hours to the entire advertising community about all our shows, our strategy, our vision. And I literally had this voice inside my head, because I really, and we can talk about it more, I worked through a lot of fear of public speaking that I had. I'm a very outgoing person and very social, but when it came to being like on the spot, whether it be a stage like that or like stand up and give an impromptu wedding toast, I just had this real like paranoia, like self-editing flight response, which came from a lot of like, I didn't have a lot of working women role models growing up. So I worked through that, but I remember thinking, I'm taking this job. Of course I am. I'm running toward it, you know, ready to go. But I had this nagging voice in the back of my head saying like, this is going to require a lot of public speaking. How are you going to do that? Yeah. Can you do that? Which created a wheel of self-doubt. I always muscled through those things. Terrifying. But I just moved through it. And I was like, nope, I'm going to conquer this. I'm not going to let this be a thing that's constantly sitting back here on my shoulder telling me like I'm not good enough to do that. And I pushed it out of the way and I kept going. I'm making a long story sound very short. There were flop sweats and anxiety attacks and acupuncture, and there were all kinds of things and therapy that went through that 5 or 6 years as I grew at Fox to be much more comfortable at it, where I thought it was possible. And I could definitely do it. Whether I could do it well was another question. And I was still terrified, to where I actually really enjoy it today. But that was kind of the moment where I was like, are you really going for this? Because this is going to require a lot of bravery on your part personally. And can you do it? And I made a deal with myself that I was going to do it.
I love that. And I love the transparency. Thank you for sharing the acupuncture and the therapy. Like all of that is real. And I think it's great because it's tools we can put in our toolbox to help us through anything that we're dealing with. So thank you for that.
Well, I talk a lot about fear of public speaking because it's actually one of the most common fears. And some people like you, for instance, are so natural at it, but you also never know. I've come across a lot of really incredible leaders, and they're not just women, who have the same issue that they worked through. And sometimes I'm just shocked. And then now I'm not. Now I'm like, it's a very human thing. And like many fears that you have, you can definitely conquer it.
Absolutely. And I appreciate the compliment, but I tell everyone before I do any kind of speaking, including the Zoom, like I get butterflies in my stomach, and I've just learned to embrace it. I think it's a good thing now. So I just welcome it. Ukanwa, what about you? What was your really hard decision you had to make?
Yeah. So like I said, I grew up in an entrepreneurial household. When I was a teenager, I actually worked for my dad, and I worked in the finance department. So I always knew that I was good at math, that I was very comfortable with numbers. And I loved money. I used to count the money that came into the business. I was like, I love that. So when I went to undergrad, I studied finance and accounting, got my degree in it. I started my first job, was in it. And I was in it for about 5.5 years.
Yeah.
But I knew myself, and I'm such a go-getter, like I'm a driver. And this was a job that I would get home and I didn't think about it anymore. And I knew myself enough to know that that wasn't me. Because if I'm part of something, like I go all out, and I couldn't wait to leave work. When I was done with work, I was like, thank God. And basically at the end of the day, I was like, okay, let's really stop and think about this. Like, why do you feel this way? And I think for me, fundamentally, it came down to two things. One was, I'm a classic extrovert. I get energy from other people. And in finance, I found myself in front of a computer most of the day. And I wasn't interacting with people on a regular basis. And that for me was it was fundamentally off, because I was giving out a lot of energy, but I wasn't getting in a lot of energy. And so at the end of the day, I was completely depleted, which is why I didn't want to do it anymore. So that was one sign. The second was, while I worked for my dad, I had a mom who was very creative and who was into fashion. And I realized that creative side of me, I wasn't tapping into at all. And it started to, and I felt like if I continued to ignore it, it would just start to atrophy. So I did an online Google search. I did what was called a MAP assessment. It's MAPP. Yeah. I actually looked into it. It's still available. And I don't think there's a cost to it. At least there wasn't back then. I didn't have a ton of money back then. So I did this assessment, and it basically came up with, you know, your top 10 vocations where you could do. And I looked at 1 through 3. And I knew it was accurate because one of the 3 was that I should be an attorney. And my family had always told me to be a lawyer because I would just argue everything. So I was like, okay, so at least 1 out of 3 is correct. The other 2 were general management and brand management. And I had never heard about brand management. I was like, what is this? And as I researched into it, I realized it was basically general management, but you owned the P&L. But the way that you drove increases in sales and you managed the P&L was through creativity. So new innovation, new ideas, new marketing campaigns, new products. And I went, oh my God, this is perfect, because you have the P&L, so you have all the math, and then you have all the magic. Like you do all the creative, you know, you lead the teams that do that. And that was amazing. And I realized I had to figure out a way to break into it. So I studied, did the GMAT, applied to, you know, a number of different schools. I got into Kellogg, which was #1 in marketing. I was so proud of myself. And I made the decision to quit a job that was very lucrative and paid really well. Everybody in my family thought I was crazy because they were like, are you kidding me? Like, this is a very lucrative job for you. How can you quit this to go to school full time for 2 years and not earn any money and switch into it? But I did. I kind of moved past the fear, went to Kellogg, got my MBA, and I've been working in marketing ever since. And it was the best career decision I ever made, because I feel like I'm really doing what I was, in a lot of ways, really created to do. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, but I love that you added another tool to the toolbox. So the MAP assessment, I think, was great. And I loved how you identify where your energy came from. So I think that's a key takeaway for everybody watching, like what gives you energy and what depletes your energy, right? And so that's super important to you, staying sustained and fulfilled. And of course, I love the math and the magic.
Totally.
So just listening to you, and so happy you're part of the team.
I know.
Yay!
Yay!
Totally. It's been so fun. Yeah.
Listen, it's a great team, and Jen, I know you've been a big part of that, and I know it's just who you are. I watch you, and it's one of the reasons why I wanted to come work for you. Just like how inclusion just oozes out of you, and it's so natural, and it's just who you are. It's how you build teams. It's how you talk about shows. It's how you decide. It's how you make decisions. And has that always been a part of your life, or like where does that come from?
I don't really know, but it was always part of my life. Like I felt like I know Amazon really focuses on, you know, customer first, and that's one of our mantras here. But I think I was always customer first. I mean, I worked at a broadcast network. My job was to provide entertainment for people everywhere. Those shows were not just for people in the States. They just weren't for LA and New York, you know, sophisticated audiences from the States. They were for the whole world, every kind of audience. And yeah. I, you know, some of the networks were really just kind of dealing in shows that were for really LA and New York is where they were overachieving, and everywhere else they were underachieving. And then they weren't maybe doing as well internationally. And I realized while I was there for a couple of years in a row at that very event called the Upfronts in New York that I referred to so pivotally in my life with the public speaking thing, I would watch these presentations one after the other from these different companies, And the shows would all start to kind of look the same. Everything had like a percussive beat and a white guy running with a gun. And I was like, this is so not anything I want to watch. It's not relevant to me or interesting. And some things were, like I did the show The Blacklist, which I really loved, but that was unique. There was James Spader was an interesting character, and he had his own idiosyncratic kind of personality traits. Otherwise, it just felt very homogenous, and I always rebelled against that. I was also sounds like Okonwa had a little bit of this too, kind of the questioner and daughter of a lawyer, always arguing, trying to like find another way. And so I kind of rebelled against that. And so that's why coming to streaming, coming to Amazon was such a gift, because I could kind of get out of some of the shackles of that business that felt like it was so kind of caught in a traditional form that didn't easily allow it to break out, which is why many of the shows we were producing ended up on Netflix and other streaming services, because you were kind of caught in this advertising sort of flywheel that felt like, you know, life's moving on, like storytelling looks different, it feels different. And so for me, building teams, I love nothing more than someone with a different point of view. When I meet somebody, I don't want everyone to be the same. When I meet someone who's really unusual and other people might go, oh, they're pretty, you know, unusual, I might run toward that. I like different, and I like a lot of people to be kind of different and bringing different points of view to things. Those are the kind of people I have in my life. Those are the, those are the stories I love. So for me, it does sort of come naturally. I thank goodness never had to think like, well, the right thing to do here would be to cast this way, or do this to sort of reverse engineer something that felt like it was actually multicultural or telling a different story. I kind of just naturally like that creatively and lean into it. So to me, it always felt right.
Yeah, that authenticity comes through. Okonwa, Jen talked about, just the streaming landscape, and we know that it continues to get more and more crowded. And so as we think through how we differentiate ourselves, one thing I love about Prime Video, to Jen's point, is like, we don't have to chase advertising dollars, and we don't have to chase subscriptions, right? Because people sign up for Prime Video or sign up for Prime, and we give you Prime Video included for free, right? Which I think is amazing. We get to chase customer delight, which I think is so fun that we absolutely just get to chase that. How are you chasing new customers in a way that helps us find that audiences and break through from all the noise in the streaming landscape?
Yeah, just like Jen says, I think it's just a natural curiosity, really getting to know people. One of the things I love about what we do is we are the thing that everybody runs to when everything else gets hard. So it's like, you've had a really hard week, you just want to sit on the couch and watch this. You had a really hard day, like this is what you want to do when like the rest of the world is a little bit too much. And that is such a special, sacred place. And so as you think about welcoming new audiences, it's really about getting to know them and getting to know what they want to escape to. So it's like, what is it that, like, let me know a little bit about you. Like, let me get under the hood a little bit. And that's what, for me, like bringing in new audiences is making sure that we have content that they want to get lost in, that they want to get engaged with, and then we figure out that intersection between what we're making, which Jen's responsible for, and what they love. And the magic is in that intersection between the two. And so that's how we find new audiences, is like really getting to know them, getting really deep and understanding what drives the different audiences, what they want to escape to, what they want to spend their time on. And then either we make that or we introduce them to things that are on our platform that they would absolutely love. And if we do that consistently over time, that's how we get more like new people. That's how we get new audiences on the platform, which I find to be, it's a privilege and a joy to be the thing that actually gives them joy, to be the thing that actually gives them a solace, like after the end of a tough day or a tough week. Yeah.
So true.
Can I say something, Latasha, off that?
Yeah, please.
I love when I first started speaking with Okonwa about, her desire to connect emotionally with a customer, with a viewer, with an audience, and how she sees, the role in marketing to be able to bring those things alive, and what does the artist really want the consumer to feel and what makes them feel like I have to engage with this. Like she said, I have to run to this because I want to be kind of transported or taken away to another place and engage in this feeling and this, in this content. And so right from the very start, she was speaking this language that I love, which is like, how does this make you feel? These shows are not, like, you can't just put shows up there and then market them as shows. The world is so competitive, as you know. And if you're not compelling people with strong feelings to engage almost obsessively with what you're putting out there, you're really not, you're not gonna survive. And so for us, I think it goes hand in hand with making of the shows and then how we're presenting those shows and interacting with people, you know, who are looking forward to those shows is the key to all of it. And so it's pretty exciting that we both kind of focus on the same sort of bullseye in that regard.
Totally.
It is. Yeah. And Jen, what's giving you joy and excitement about on the content side? What are you most excited about that you're working on today?
Well, you know what I love so much is that we were really so ahead. I don't want to say ahead because that sounds opportunistic, but since we were so organically and naturally pursuing a diverse slate, diverse creators, and I know, you know, obviously we're living through a movement that will continue. And I felt so proud that already the stable of creators at Amazon, we already had we have the very best and brightest and most creative, you know, television producers already working exclusively with us, whether it be, you know, Barry Jenkins or Lena Waithe or, you know, one I can't say that I almost said that we haven't announced yet, but I'm very excited that you all will know and be obsessed with who are watching this.
Yeah.
We just
Heather Ray and
Heather and so many, and even like, yeah, exactly. We have a deal with Jordan Peele, you know, so we just have so many great partners. And so we already have these incredible shows in the works. And unfortunately, because of COVID, there's a lot of things unfortunate about COVID, but one of them is that our shows, our productions, we had to shut down over 60 productions all over the world to make sure our crews and our producers were safe and our actors. And so getting those things back and up and going is a short delay, but there's so much in the works and some of it almost complete that is really leaning into telling stories that are not overly represented, that are underrepresented and are so engaging and original and moving and emotional and entertaining, but with some real substance behind them that I think will drive that. So there's a lot coming up. And then on the movie side, there's been such a shift in movies, and we just launched our Blumhouse, our Jason Blum, for those of you who are familiar with him. He's a producer who kind of specializes in horror thrillers. And we made 8 movies, all with underrepresented creators from all different, you know, all different worlds. All of these creators came with like not a lot of experience, you know, really unique perspectives, and we gave them all a chance to make this group of movies that were just out in the middle of launching. So that's been really exciting. We're very focused on the younger multicultural audience right now. So a lot of these creators are working in that space as well, but there's so much to be excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Blumhouse movies, like globally diverse stories and just really interesting. Talk a little bit more about the international side, because I don't think people, you know, may not be as familiar with, like, we have this vast international slate. You know, some of my favorite shows come out of India. I talk about them all the time, but we're in several countries, we're producing original content and.
Oh my God, several countries. We're producing original content all over the world. And so right now I also oversee a global content team who are in production on shows across the globe. Of those 68 things we shut down, the majority of them were being shot in our 4 audiences all over the world. So when we look at a market like, let's take India, for example, we know that they love our big global series. They love Jack Ryan and Maisel and our shows, but they also really love their own content coming from their own homegrown creators, you know, that takes place in their worlds and are stories that they relate to. So as you look globally at what you're doing, you build teams that are also, they have to have teams that have all different points of view. When you have countries that have their own, you know, different parts of the, you know, different part, like in India, for example, when you have shows in multiple languages and dialects. And so there's so much to do there, but, you know, we are producing all over the world. We have the same high bar of original stories that connect you emotionally, that are, you know, announce themselves as having substance and being entertaining, but also make you think and stick with you so you come back week to week and or binge to binge. It's been really exciting. That was the most intoxicating thing about coming over to Amazon, was to have literally the storytelling is global. So you're dealing with a world of future customers and Amazon subscribers who represent the entire, you know, the entire rainbow of every kind of person. And we want all those people to feel like there's something for them on Prime.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ukawa, a lot of that is in your the responsibility is in your hands. So how are you thinking about inclusive marketing and reaching all those people around the world in a way that feels organic and authentic to them, where they feel seen and heard?
Yeah, I think the first thing about inclusive marketing is actually having products that are relevant to them. Where you've actually like really thought about them and you've created for them and you've created for the world. And so I think that's one of the great things, just even listening to Jen, like you can tell that she's thinking about all of those audiences when she's greenlighting shows and when we're making shows. So I think check, like the first step in inclusive marketing is actually making the right product for the diversity of audiences that you have within the country that you're in, or for us, the world, because we are creating for the world. So I think that's the first step. The second step is inclusive marketing for me isn't lazy. It doesn't assume that you make something that's very watered down and then it works for everyone. It works for a piece of everyone. But it actually does take the time to really get to know all the different audiences and points of view, and tries to find those multiple intersection points. And it's harder working. It takes more time. It means you really have to get to know them. So if you want to appeal to a Latina, like you really have to understand like what, you know, makes her tick or what makes him tick, what kind of content they love, how they want to be marketed to, where they want to be marketed to, where are they spending their time, because that's where you want to be, and you don't want to force them to come somewhere else, and you want to make it easy, the path easy for them. If you're marketing to an African or to an African American, like you really have to get to know them, understand their culture, understand what drives them, what's emotional for them, what their days are like, what their struggles are like, what their joys are like, what they're trying to get away from and what they want to escape into. And the more you know about that, the easier it is to market, but it takes a lot of time and effort to really get to know them. And it takes having people on your team who really understand that. And who are willing to put in the time and the work to do that. So not only are they diverse themselves, but they also have a natural curiosity to learn about other people. So one of the principles at Amazon is learn and be curious. And I think you have to learn and be curious to be an inclusive marketer, because it's really about finding the intersection, and you will not find the intersection if you don't know the other person, or if you don't know the other group or group of audiences. And the more you know about them, the easier it is to tell stories that are relevant to them and to position whatever it is you're doing in a way that they want to be a part of, and hopefully even want to advocate for you at the end of the day.
You know why I love that? It's because it's a fungible skill. It doesn't matter what line of business you're in, whether you're in marketing or creating content. I love that, just about being intentional and learning and be curious about somebody else's experience. I love that. So regardless to our audience of what field you're in or what your skill sets are, you can take that and apply it to anything. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, it's a very, very fundamental skill, regardless of whatever it is and that's why I love that it's a principle for Amazon, because it's like if you're creating technology or if you're writing stories or you're serving in a different way, the step one is know who you're creating for, be very consumer obsessed, and then create what you know will delight them and what will make them want to be a part of the Amazon family.
So Jen, I get what you're saying when you talk about Ukamwa's such a natural fit into Amazon, even though she's only been here like for a short amount of time. That customer obsession just constantly oozes out of you, Ukamwa. And we all know, like, it's the thing, you know, all 14 leadership principles are important, but we all know customer obsession
that's the thing.
Right. We obsess over customers, and I love that. And I think that's what makes us special and unique. Both of you hit on like just some of the challenging times. So, you know, it's definitely a double global pandemic, whether we're talking about racial injustice around the world, not just in America, but we saw in Brazil, every 23 seconds a Black man is killed by a police officer in the country of Brazil. We also have the global pandemic of COVID-19 and everything that has come with that. And I feel like, you know, now we're dealing with hurricane season, unprecedented, and, you know, weather changes and fires. It's a lot happening in the world right now. As leaders, both of you lead large global teams. As leaders, how are the circumstances around everything that's happening in the world today influencing the way in which you lead?
Well, I feel like I'm so grateful, certainly, that you have been here, Latasha, by my side, because this has been a horrific time for so many of our employees. And, you know, for us, it's, you know, we've gone through a lot together over the last months, and we'll continue to pulling the teams together and helping face, you know, the real crisis that has obviously been, you know, part of the history of what so many of our employees and obviously people in the world are living with every day. But the reckoning that has been happening and the, you know, the emotional reaction, appropriate emotional reaction of our employees has been profound. And so to be able to pull together and really inspire not only people to be there to support each other, but to put real, you know, process into place that will be intentional and change things moving forward in not a, you know, safe way, in a aggressive way, has been really gratifying to me. And, you know, I know that a lot of that journey has been and will continue to be difficult, but I welcome it. I am so all about being intentional with this, as you know, and to making sure that as we think globally, as we think about all our employees, if we think about them as a reflection of our entire world of customers and people in general, that we need to be engaged in all of this. We need to be thoughtful and intentional. And I'm really proud of how Amazon has stepped into the space throughout the entire company to really create change. I know it's not easy. It's going to continue to not be easy, but I welcome it. I welcome like every minute of it. And, you know, I'm grateful that you have been here to help lead that charge.
I appreciate that. I tell people all the time, you know, I've worked over 25 years of my life, and I was so grateful that during this time, I work in this organization for you and with the people that I get to work with every day. I'm glad I'm right here. So thank you for your leadership in that.
I'm grateful.
And Ukamwa, you know, people, we're no longer working from home. We're living at work. You know, so, you know, and that takes a toll on people over time. And like, how do you lead people through, you know, these tiresome months and this quarantine that's happening globally and this disconnection that we as humans so desperately need?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. I think that one of the things that has been positive out of a very traumatic experience, I think we see each other in a very different way, and we see the humanity in each other. I remember when Judge Floyd happened, I have a practice that I have in my leadership team meeting every week, and that's we start with a check-in. And we have our rule for check-in is you can use any word to describe how you're feeling, but you can't use the word good, because we've learned that that's a crutch. And typically everybody says, I'm good, I'm fine, and then they don't go deeper. And I remember the Monday after George Floyd, typical kind of check-in, and it was an incredibly emotional check-in. And my group of leaders like cried real tears about what had happened. And it was a very diverse team. And so to see that that was a human response to such a tragic event. And that moment actually gave me hope, because I said, oh, wow, like it's not just Black people crying, it's white people crying and Latina people crying. Like we're all crying together, and we're all committed to creating a world that's better for all of us. And so coming out of that, I think as a leader, it's just a remembering that we're all human and that we're going through this human journey together and supporting each other. And so continuing this practice of check-in to learn, like, when do you need a time off? When do you need to lean in? And when do you need to say, you know what? You have not taken a holiday since COVID happened. I don't care if you can't travel anywhere, but you literally just need to like disconnect and take some time and get some rest. Because a lot of people were like, if I'm not traveling, then I don't need to take a break. It's like, no. A break is actually like a break. It's not traveling. It's like you literally need to stop and decompress and actually deal with everything that's happening and get some rest and some sleep and water and like eat like fresh fruit and vegetables, like that, like take whatever it is that like rocks your boat. And I think it's just really listening to each other and being very present with each other and allowing each other to be very human in the moment. And then the second thing is recognizing that the world is going through a very horrific time. And the fact that we create entertainment and escape for the world is a privilege. I talked about that early on, but it's a privilege that we don't take lightly. And so a big part of what we do is we bring joy into people's homes, right? Because they can be dealing with all of this craziness outside, but we want that when they click on Prime Video, like they can run away from that for even if it's 30 minutes or an hour or 5 hours or 10 hours, like we don't care. But like this is it's a safe place for you to laugh and cry and feel and jump or whatever, or be in complete amazement and shock, whatever it is. This is a place for you to kind of get away from that, and I think that's kind of cool in this moment to be a part of the team that is responsible for that. But yeah, it's a really interesting time for leadership. But I've found that at the end of the day, it's really about empathy and humanity.
I agree. And during COVID, it feels like, and all these events, the double pandemic, as you called it, you are feeling and seeing each other's humanity, despite that we don't have any legs. We exist in raised up. But I feel people are really connecting, and they are much more, emotionally accessible. And I think we're spending more time talking because our lives aren't filled with all the other extracurricular things that are going on. So when we are working and we can take that extra time to connect on a personal basis, I think it's so important. And I'm going to take your check-in idea and pay it forward, because I think it's such a good one. I won't say good. It's a
healthy one. There you go. So audience, feel free to take Conway's check-in as well. So ladies, I know that on a daily basis, I learn so much from watching the both of you, talking to the both of you, listening to the both of you, both in encouragement and correction, which I always appreciate. And I think that's, I love that women can support other women in that way in terms of helping them grow. And it's a pleasure to watch you. And I know our audience has gotten a lot out of this today, just from your natural responses, and how you lead naturally and how you live your lives. So thank you for that. And so the last question I want to end on is a personal reflection question. So you both have had amazing careers, great families, but also understand that there were some challenges along the way. There were moments that frightened you and decisions you had to make. But knowing what you know now, if you had to go back 15 years and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would you tell her? Conwell, I'll start with you and Jen will end with you.
Sure. I love that question. And so, yeah, if I had to go back, I think what I would tell her is that she is enough. Because there were a lot of times when the much younger me wondered if I was enough, wondered if I would ever fit into corporate America, wondered if I would ever be successful within it, wondered if I could ever be myself. There was a time when I wondered if I could wear my natural hair to work. I mean, like now when I think about it, I'm like, girl, that's crazy.
I think it is so relatable that people don't feel they're enough. And that segues like right to my answer, which is, you know, I got comfortable early on with like, do something scary every day, like jump into the uncomfortable. You talked about, you still have butterflies, although I never see them. You know, butterflies are good. Feeling incredibly nervous is good. Breaking out in hives is okay. I just learned to say yes to everything that was asked of me to do that was externally facing, to break through that. But what if beyond that piece of advice, which would be continue to do that, and I think I did it. I wished I'd maybe started a little bit younger, but I'm happy with the way I kind of battled through that. But what I really, going back even more fundamentally, it's exactly the same thing. It's like your point of view is what people want to hear. You have something to say it, lean in, be brave, let your thoughts be known. We're not hiring, you know, warm bodies to fill up spaces and chairs. And once I had a boss who said to me, like, you're not being hired to just be a body in the meeting. Like, you're being hired to speak up and speak your point of view. That's what we need from you. That's what distinguishes you from everyone else we could have hired and everyone else in the room. And it took me a long time as a very, very, young, just coming out of the assistant chair, to kind of really take that on and own it. It was part of my evolution of becoming really comfortable in my own skin and being authentic and being myself. I show up as myself every single day, and it's the most freeing thing. But start working on that early. Be your own best friend and say, like, what's the worst thing that can happen here? Walk through it, do whatever you can, breathing exercises. And it's okay to say, I'm incredibly nervous right now, or I'm sorry, I have these red blotches all over my neck. I'm just really kind of nervous about doing this. And when you let that out and you show your humanity, it opens the door this much, and then you can just walk through it as your own self and take up the space that you so deserve and that the world needs. We need all future leaders to do that as soon as possible.
Listen, somebody needed to hear that very thing right now, Jen. There's somebody with a redneck right now that needed to hear that, and that just blessed their entire life. So thank you.
I love that.
Yeah.
Love
and
that.
Again, thank you both. I love you both because you're smart, you're brilliant, you're fierce, you're a force to be reckoned with, and you're also just wonderful people. So, not everyone is fortunate enough to get to work alongside people with that combination every day. And so those of us at Prime Video and Amazon Studios, we're incredibly fortunate to get that opportunity. So thank you both.
We love you too, Latasha. Thank you so much for moderating.
I know, such a gem, such a joy.
At Amazon, so look forward to it. Please make your voice be heard and reach out.
Yes. So again, audience, thank you for hanging in with us, and we hope that you enjoyed this as much as we did. So until next time.
Awesome. Thank you. This is so fun.